Hey, my handsome ladies and gentlemen, this is Shmeaty. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you're new. I'm not going to waste too much of your time on today's intro, as we all know what we're here for. I hit Legend, it was in the Master League, and I'm going to go over the team that I used to do so, and basically anything that I feel like you need to know when running this team. Starting things off, of course, the team is Shadow Rhyperior, Lunala as the safe switch, and of course the ever-trusty Moist Man in the back. So we're going to pick up an amazing lead in game number 1, leading Shadow Rhyperior up against a Ho-Oh. Ho-Ohs generally don't call this bait, but it is in your best interest not to go for the Breaking Swipe, because if your Breaking Swipe bait gets called, you're in a much worse position. I am going to no-shield the first move up against the Ho-Oh. It's going to be the Sacred Fire, they do get the debuff, and they are going to be able to outpace to the next move. However, I'm very happy to shield this up, because there is a Ho-Oh staying in against my Rhyperior. They are going to see me bring in my Lunala as an answer to their Zacian, and I have to no-shield this move. I can't really afford to shield up the Behemoth Blade there. Although the Behemoth Blade does do a lot of damage, it's not going to be enough to one-shot Lunala, and the Lunala will be able to return with some very big damage with the Shadow Ball. We're going to get the shield, and we're going to be able to get the 1 HP survive needed to clutch up and make this very impactful Shadow Ball up against the shieldless Zacian. Now I'm going to bring in Moist Man, looking for the counter down. They don't throw their move, and that is absolutely massive for us. The opponent absolutely does not want to play the game anymore, as they had a Ho-Oh with low HP and something that did not want to see my Moist Man. We are going to lead in the next game up against a Lunala lead. I am going to build up to the Rock Wrecker, and generally I'm going to send the Rock Wrecker here. I am going to try to keep these plays as consistent as possible, throw 3 Mud Slaps and then the Rock Wrecker. This Lunala is in Rock Wrecker range. Shadow Rhyperiors love to bait. Do they call it? They do call the bait, and unfortunately this is actually one of the games where I actually go for the Breaking Swipe bait. But if you do go for the Breaking Swipe bait, you can reach 2 and still force a shield regardless. Getting the KO on the Lunala would have definitely been a lot better for us, but we're able to shield up the Shadow Ball, which is just as good, and we are able to get that farm down. Next up, it's going to be their Palkia. Palkia down this much energy up against a Rhyperior is not in a good spot whatsoever. You would think the Water type would be having a great time up against the Rock and Ground type Pokemon, but because of the pacing of Aqua Tail, at least in the current season, Palkia is not in for too much of a good time. We're able to get a Breaking Swipe debuff off, and now bringing in the Moist Man, we can absorb a Spatial Rend here. It's not going to be enough to KO. In comes Zacian. Zacian is going to have a tough time, as we are going to be able to reach a Dynamic Punch, and this Dynamic Punch, despite 1600 combat power difference, is not going to mess around. We've gotten the Zacian on very low HP here, and now I am going to, of course, have to let my Moist Man go. Don't have any health left on it, don't have any shields. So, bring in the Lunala, and now, are we going to make a catch here? We make the catch of the Behemoth Blade onto the Rhyperior, and that will absolutely seal this game. Lunala is going to be able to get the farm down. They bring in the Palkia. I'm going to fire off the Shadow Ball before they're able to make any further moves. And now, Shadow Ball will guarantee the KO up against the Palkia. Zacian gets farmed down, and we're into the next game. This lead is what nightmares are made out of. Shadow Rhyperior up against Kyogre. I'm going to need to immediately safe switch, and I am going to be met with my Lunala safe switch with an Ice Fang Zamazenta. Lunala does have the pacing advantage, and we can make a play for switch advantage in this game, and switch advantage would be very impactful here. You're going to see me shield up, as I know that I can live 1 Behemoth Bash, and I can force the shielding decision from my opponent in this game. I'm going to fire off the Shadow Ball here. Shadow Ball will do the remainder of the Zamazenta's HP. If they decide to no shield, they decide to shield it up. Ice Fangs have added up quite a bit. I am going to double down and double shield my Lunala. And now I'm going to be able to get this full Shadow Claw farm down before they're able to make a further Behemoth Blade. They are going to bring back in the Kyogre, and maybe they have something even better for my Rhyperior in back. There's no way, right? They are up a shield. I'm going to be able to outpace and get to 1 further Shadow Ball. Kyogre's forced to respect this, or they will get KO'd here. They actually just let the Kyogre go, and in the back, they've got Zacian. I just hard pivot into the Rhyperior. I'm going for the Breaking Swipe. Breaking Swipe up against the Zacian. Is it going to do any meaningful damage? Absolutely not, but what it will do is get the debuff, and that is very, very big for us. They go for the Behemoth Blade, but now they are just too low. Nothing they can throw up against the Moist Man is going to potentiate a KO. I guess sparing maybe a Play Rough, but they don't have Play Rough. They go for the close combat. Moist Man would get the farm down, so they will top left. Getting into the next one, Rhyperior into Zacian. I absolutely love this lead. This either forces the Zacian to pivot out and give switch advantage, or they try to commit to a close combat and then give you switch advantage after taking half of their health. I'm going to fire off the Breaking Swipe. That does do a decent amount of damage onto the Lunala, but more importantly, it puts the Lunala into perfect Shadow Claw down range. As you're going to see here, we are going to be able to get the Shadow Claw down before the Lunala is able to reach a second Shadow Ball. We take a little bit of damage in the process, but I'm okay with that. I'm going to fire off my Shadow Ball now. Shadow Ball onto the Zacian, as we've seen, does do a sizable amount of damage. Definitely a non-negligible amount of damage onto that Zacian, and we're going to be able to reach another before they throw their Behemoth Blade. We are going to get that move shielded up, and now we are at shield parity. I think we can very safely let go of the Lunala, but no, we're going to make a pivot and catch onto our Moist Man. Behemoth Blade is resisted. It still does infinite amounts of damage. I had a feeling it was double bat, but I had to try to lure this Dawn Wings. I think this is Dawn Wings. I had to try to lure the Dawn Wings out. They are going to look to attempt the farm down. Can we make another Aqua Jet? We cannot. This is getting very, very tricky. They have basically 100 energy here, and it's not looking too good. They throw a move, though. That was one off of the Shadow Ball. I really would have loved to be able to make that Shadow Ball, but I'm going to have to take the Dark Pulse and get KO'd. Now, it all comes down to this. Are they Dark Pulse baiting me? That's the question. I'm going to let it go. It's a Dark Pulse bait. Moongeist would have KO'd, and now I'm looking to make a Breaking Swipe up against this Dawn Wings. Breaking Swipe onto the Dawn Wings. Is it going to be enough to KO from here? It would be, so they have to put up a shield. They're throwing energy. This is absolutely a lose con for my opponent. They go for the Dark Pulse. They bring in the Zacian. I go for the Breaking Swipe. I don't think this is enough. Is it enough? Breaking Swipe, double resisted. It's enough, and it's a simultaneous KO. GG's. Okay, I'm not going to lie to you. This is a very uncomfortable lead. Most likely Ice Fang Zamazenta up against Rhyperior. This is oftentimes paired up in the Match League with Kyurem Black and the Lunala. So this is less than ideal for me, certainly. But I am going to safe switch into my Lunala. Haven't been answered yet. They are going to put up a shield on my Shadow Ball and then bring in their Kyurem Black. KB is going to be able to potentially farm us all the way down, but they don't throw. I'm very confused by this play, as they've now given up both shields, and that is not how you want to play this out. I can now just bring in Rhyperior, shield anything they throw, go for one further Mud Slap, and I have the Rock Wrecker loaded to completely obliterate this KB. They are going to fire off the Fusion Bolt bait, and I am going to fire off a Rock Wrecker in return. Shadow Rock Wrecker, there's no question about it. Down goes the KB. We're going to see an immediate pivot into the Moist Man, and this is very important. I got one turn bring in there, and I deserve to get one turn bring in there, but watch this. We wait the turn. CMP tie with the close combat, and this game is now over because I waited that turn. I'm now able to force a CMP tie. The Zacian was doubled up on close combats, but they aren't going to get the second one off. The first one doesn't KO. Ice Fang Zamazenta, not enough fast move pressure to farm down the Moist Man. They go for a close combat. I've got the Dynamic Punch loaded, and this game is over. GG's to this trainer. Getting into the next game, Shadow Rhyperior leads into an Urshifu Rapid Strike. Not the best lead whatsoever. It's pretty difficult to play this out. Oftentimes I will bring in my own Moist Man. The reason for that is because that was a very strange interaction, by the way. Okay, I do have the higher attack stat most likely because I'm the hundo, and this guy's not, but that shouldn't have been a CMP tie. That worked dramatically in my favor, but I have to call the game out for being bad when the game's bad. The opponent is going to now bring in their KB. KB is going to go for the Fusion Bolt, but I'm going to be able to get some sizable damage off on the KB with the counters, and now an Aqua Jet bait. This Aqua Jet bait forces them to throw energy sooner. And now I'm bringing in Rhyperior. If they go for the free shock, so be it. I was really hoping that they undertapped the Fusion Bolt there. Very intentionally, I switched into the Rhyperior because if they under-tap the Fusion Bolt there, I'm in a really good spot, and I catch the energy where it's a lot less impactful. Back in comes their Moist Man, but my Moist Man is moister, and I have a move loaded. Dynamic Punch does quite a lot of damage. I'm now going to be forced to bring in Lunala as my last Pokemon. They've got the Zacian in the back, but Lunala in the Zero Shield should be able, especially with the Shadow Claw head start, to beat the Zacian here. Because a Behemoth Blade is not going to be enough to KO, and we will be able to outpace the two. They can never bait with a close combat here, because if they ever bait with a close combat, the game's over, because the close combat almost never kills. We are now going to be able to get the Shadow Ball off onto the Zacian. There's no shields remaining in this game. They can bring back in the Moist Man, but I have more than 1 HP, so the counter does not KO. GG's. Getting into the next game, Shadow Rhyperior up against a Purified Apex Ho-Oh, and this one's actually an Apex Ho-Oh. Last time I said that it was a Purified Apex Lugia. Nevertheless, they are going to be able to strike first with a move. I'm going to no-shield with the Rhyperior here. They go for the Brave Bird, and they are instantly switching out into a Palkia. Not the worst ever for me, and the reason for that is because I have a strict pacing advantage up against Palkia in general, but now that I have a double Breaking Swipe advantage over the Palkia, I'm in a really good spot. They are going to get farmed down by the Lunala before the Palkia is even able to make a move, and now we have residual energy going up against the incoming Ho-Oh. I'm going to be able to fire off yet another Shadow Ball onto the Ho-Oh. Well, I guess it's the first Shadow Ball. Nevertheless, Purified Apex Ho-Oh going to be able to fire off the Sacred Fire Plus. It does more damage in raids, not necessarily in PvP, but I am going to overfarm as much as I can and go for the Shadow Ball once again. This Ho-Oh's in a really bad spot. They are going to shield up the Shadow Ball. 2 Shadow Claws that catch onto the Rhyperior. They double shielded the Ho-Oh, not realizing how useless it is. They go for the Brave Bird. No matter what we do here, we should be in a very dominant position. We've got Moist Man up a shield, we've got Lunala with residual energy, and in the back, it's a Dragon Tail Kyurem. That's a top left if ever I've seen one. Speaking of Dragon Tail Kyurem, it seems like we have one here on the lead. Generally, if you see a Kyurem on lead, it's going to be on Dragon Tail, and it's going to generally be one theme. It's usually Dragon Tail Kyurem, Rhyperior, and Ho-Oh. They are going to bank a bunch of energy and then switch into their own Rhyperior. But I get this Breaking Swipe to land onto the Rhyperior, and that's okay with me. The debuff lands, and now I think this is a full farm down with the Moist Man. If they don't get the debuff here, this is just a full, this is a full counter down before they're able to make a second move. That is absolutely massive. In comes the Ho-Oh. Unfortunately, I undertap my move, hoping that I'm able to land an Aqua Jet bait up against the Kyurem. Unfortunately, I let a full Incinerate through in the process, but now got the Aqua Jet loaded. Another Aqua Jet onto the Ho-Oh. This would do a sizable amount of damage onto them, and they are going to shield up. 2 more counters. I could have potentially gone for a catch there, but I'd actually rather them throw energy with their Ho-Oh here. They go for the Sacred Fire. That's quite alright by me, as I'm going to be able to, if they don't switch out here, make another move. And now, I have a pretty tough decision to make here. Am I going to undertap in case they bring in Kyurem? No, I'm just going to switch Lunala, because I believe this Kyurem can only ever make one move. I'm forcing them to go for the Freeze Shock, but if they go for the Freeze Shock, they're not going to be able to get to another move up against the Rhyperior, and now I'm going to fire off the Shadow Ball. If they just Freeze Shocked my Lunala there, I'm pretty sure I lost the game immediately. The Shadow Ball lands onto the Ho-Oh, and the opponent will once again top left. A deceptively good lead for Rhyperior awaits in the next game, as it's going to be Shadow Rhyperior leading into Palkia Origin. Specifically, the Shadow Rhyperior has a very nice time in this matchup, and the reason for that is because it has a pacing advantage over Palkia. Palkia is 12 turns to their first Aqua Tail, and I think they have an 11 cycle somewhere. I don't know, my math isn't really that good. They caught onto their Zamazenta, not the best for me. I'm going to overfarm, bank a Rock Wrecker, bring in the Moist Man, and this Zamazenta has taken so much damage already, but they are going to be able to connect with a hard-hitting close combat. Not so hard-hitting now that they have been debuffed. And before another one lands, I want to be able to either pressure a shield or get the KO with my Aqua Jet, and I'm able to do just that. They're not going to drop a shield that low on health, and they're going to bring back in the Palkia, but I'm too healthy. I'm not getting Dragon Breath down here. They're going to go for an Aqua Tail, and I just kind of have to let this go, unfortunately. I do have basically infinity energy on my Rhyperior here, so I'm bringing him in, going for a Mud Slap, going for a Breaking Swipe, and now I don't think they have enough energy to get rid of this Rhyperior, so I'm clicking Breaking Swipe immediately. And was that a 1 HP survive? I think so. Not quite. Bringing in the Lunala, getting both shields from the Palkia. Palkia is going to be able to make a last-second move here. This should be a Spatial Rend, and I am going to shield it up because it's going to be Zacian in the back. This is actually going to get quite a bit tough. I'm going for the Shadow Ball. I think I'm approaching Behemoth Blade range, and if I'm in Behemoth Blade range, I will lose the game. They go for the CMP tie. This is not good for me. I think this Blade KOs. Blade does KO, and now I'm getting farmed down by the Zacian. GG's to this trainer. These next couple battles, I started at 2968 elo, and I need a 4-1 or better to get to Legend. This is the first game of the Legend push. We are leading once again. Shadow Rhyperior up against Palkia, the deceptively good lead. I am going to fire off my Breaking Swipe on 5, and every single time I decide to click my Breaking Swipe button, the Palkia CMPs me. It doesn't matter if I throw 4 Mud Slaps or I throw 8 Mud Slaps, they're going to always CMP me. I'm just very unlucky like that. I am going to fire off the Breaking Swipe up against the opposing Rhyperior, I guess. That was definitely targeted at the Palkia. They are a non-Shadow Rhyperior, so they're going to be able to likely make 2 Breaking Swipes here. But I'm okay with that. I don't really care. They go for the Rock Record. That is a big misplay, as I think the Mud Slaps and the Breaking Swipe would have actually made me go down to shield there. And now, they bring back in the Palkia. I've got a Dynamic Punch with that Palkia's name on it. They bring in the Ho-Oh instead, and we've got 2 Aqua Jets. So once again, Ho-Oh cannot survive 2 Aqua Jets, so if they decide to stay in here, they decide to bring in the Palkia instead, and I didn't throw immediately, so they tried to catch an Aqua Jet, and they just caught a Dynamic Punch. Back in comes the Ho-Oh, and Ho-Oh is so unfortunately far behind this matchup. I'm going to throw the Breaking Swipe. I don't care. I know that they can easily call this, but they don't. And now this game is 100% over. I'm able to get another Breaking Swipe off here. Realistically, this doesn't matter. I have a full health Lunala in back, and their Ho-Oh is now at 1 HP, but realistically, even if they were able to get that farm down, which they were not able to, we could just bring it in the Moist Man for the counter down. We can always just outpace anyway with the Lunala, and we can also always take a Sacred Fire. GG's. Okay, this is going to be interesting. Shadow Rhyperior Mirror. And my Shadow Rhyperior, as you can tell, is a little bit scuffed. I'm a 15-13-13, so I'm not quite the hundo. There's a lot of suspicious hundo Rhyperiors in the Master League. I decided to best buddy my Rhyperior specifically for this exact matchup, the Mirror, because I need to be able to play into the CMP tie and neutralize an opposing Shadow Rhyperior. This is how I like to play it out originally. They are going to no shield, and they are going to now bring in their Ho-Oh, but I have a little bit of Rhyperior left, which is a very good thing. I'm going to pivot out into my Lunala. Lunala, excuse me, is going to go for the Shadow Ball, and they need a Sacred Fire debuff here. If they get the Sacred Fire debuff, this game gets a lot easier for them, and they don't get it. So now, I'm going to be able to overfarm, go for my Shadow Ball, and they catch it onto their Zacian, but that is not the catch they needed, because the Shadow Ball does about 50% onto the Zacian, and they're getting outpaced. If they throw a move here, this is only... Oh, the filthy catch! I forgot I was making plays like this. Behemoth Blade caught onto the Rhyperior. In comes the Moist Man for the farm down. No matter what they throw here, it's not going to be enough to KO. They don't even throw. Ho-Oh gets back onto the field, but there's a top left in its future. GG's. Getting into the next one, a very nice lead. We're going to lead Shadow Rhyperior up against Crowned Sword Zacian, and they are going to save switch into Giratina Origin. This is very good for us. Giratina O is a massive core breaker for my backline, so being able to get it out on the lead, because the opponent is very weak to our lead of Shadow Rhyperior, is very, very good for us. I'm going to throw 3 more Mud Slaps. Now I'm going to throw 4 more Mud Slaps and go for the CMP tie, going for a Breaking Swipe here, either getting a shield or a KO onto the Giratina. I'm going to shield this up, or no, actually, you know what? I'm going to let this go. Shadow Ball is not going to be enough to KO, and I can leave with a Rock Wrecker stored. I'm going to stop tapping because they actually bring in Kyogre. And if I kept tapping to get an extra Mud Slap through there, I would have actually just lost my entire Rock Wrecker and potentially the game. So I go for the Shadow Ball. Kyogre is now exceedingly low here. And now this game should just be over. They go for the Origin Pulse. I was really hoping for a Surf. Kyogre's got very poor pacing, so when they're that low, they have a high incentive to throw the big move. Nevertheless, in comes Zacian, but I am, with the Moist Man, able to outpace, and they're going to fire off a move here, but I think this is a pretty safe shield, no matter what they do. And now they are going to go for the Behemoth Blade. That's a very smart play, not wanting to debuff themselves too early, but regardless, it's not going to be enough. I go for the Aqua Jet. Aqua Jet is going to do more than enough damage to scare them into shielding up. And now, Aqua Jet number 2, they are very low. The Rhyperior is basically useless at this point, so we're more than happy to go for the Rock Wrecker. We know that the Kyogre has Surf and Origin Pulse, and they are going to top left as there is a Moist Man awaiting their Kyogre. I swear, this team is an absolute top left magnet. Shadow Rhyperior leading into Kyurem Black. KB is going to build up to 5, look to catch a Rock Wrecker onto their Rhyperior, and we can bank all that energy for later, bring in the Moist Man, 0 shield counter down through this Rhyperior, and this is unfortunately basically just good game to our opponent. I'm going to fire off the Aqua Jet. Potentially getting a shield here would be very nice. They're going to no-shield it, and realistically, they're not going to win that one. GG's. We've now made it to the final game of the video, and it is Rhyperior leading into Giratina. This is absolutely where we need to see this Pokemon, because if we see this Pokemon anywhere else, we're going to be in for a bad time. We're going to bring our Moist Man into the Zamazenta. This is a very easy 0 shield counter down. Or at least I thought it was. I didn't even realize it got that move. And because of that, I think I've been bamboozled enough where they can now flip switch advantage and take the game. We're going to try this out to the best of our ability, but this is very bad. There's actually a glitch where if you have another Pokemon and it learns a charge move, it can show up as like a Pokemon that doesn't get that charge move, throwing that move, and I actually thought that's what happened here, but I forget that like base Zamazenta also gets that silly little fairy move, and so unfortunately I just kind of get blasted there, and there's like no recovery from this point. Unfortunately, I go down a shield with my Lunala, and that is prime Giratina time for my opponent. I do have a sick nasty amount of energy with the Lunala here, but it doesn't matter. I'm not going to be able to outpace them. They can go straight Ominous Wind, and they can basically deny my next Shadow Ball. And of course, that's what they're going to play to. They're going to be able to fire it off just before I get my next move. And yeah, this is pretty cooked. I was really hoping that maybe I lived that Ominous Wind, and I didn't think they were in Breaking Swipe range when I first got brought in, so I tried to throw on proper timing. I throw 3 Mud Slaps, and I get farmed down, or rather hit with an Ominous Wind and KO'd. And not the best to showcase there, but it is what it is. You can't win them all. That was a good game. I just got thoroughly bamboozled, and my Moist Man got blasted into a different plane of existence. We get the pose, we get the screenshot for the boys. GG's to all trainers we played. If you made it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. A few things to get out the way. I know some people may ask, can you run a non-Shadow Rhyperior in place of the Shadow? And my answer is unfortunately going to be no. I know Shadow Rhyperior has been out for a while, so hopefully everybody's been able to get at least somewhat of a buildable spread. If it helps, mine is a 15-13-13, so not at all the best IVs ever, but the 15 attack is very important to make sure that you're competitive in the CMP ties up against either non-best buddy Rhyperior or best buddy Rhyperior. That's why I have my Rhyperior equipped best buddy in all of these games, because opposing Rhyperior leads would be an absolute nightmare without it. That being said, outside of that, my Lunala is a 15-15-13, basically the bare minimum IV spread that you want for Lunala, and I have bottle capped my Moist Man. He is a 15-15-15. With all that being said, is there any substitutes? I would not recommend regular Rhyperior with this team. and that is because Shadow Rhyperior has a much more dominating matchup up against not only the crowns, as you saw, Zacian takes half of its health trying to make a close combat, and Palkia as well. You actually just straight up beat Palkia outside of the zero shield scenario with the Shadow Rhyperior, which is what made it very appealing for me. With all that being said, if you guys have any questions about the team, please feel free to let me know. I've been Shmeaty. Thanks once again so much for watching. Hope to see you all again next time, and have a good rest of your day. See ya.